They called me just the babysitter in front of guests. So I left them with the kids and the mortgage I'd been quietly paying for 12 years. I had been up since 5 in the morning, quietly whisking batter in the kitchen while the house still slept. It was Eli's birthday, 7 years old today, and I wanted everything to be just right. I had made his favorite, a vanilla sheet cake with lemon frosting, decorated with small edible stars and a little plastic dinosaur on top. He loved dinosaurs. I had found that figurine tucked away in an old toy box from when his father, Derek, was just a boy. It felt like a full circle moment. I smiled as I smoothed the frosting, humming the tune I used to sing to Eli when he was a toddler. By 10 a.m., the house was bustling with children screaming, wrapping paper crinkling, party horns blaring. Amber, my daughter-in-law, had rented a bounce castle and hired a clown. She wore a tight, glittering dress and heels, pacing like a peacock. Every corner of the house smelled like scented candles and artificial strawberry from some overpriced diffuser. She wanted everything Instagrammable. I stayed out of her way, as usual. I had learned to. When the guests started arriving, I gently carried the cake out from the fridge and placed it on the kitchen island. A few guests peeked into the kitchen and smiled politely at me before being ushered away by Amber. I reached for the candle box when I heard her sharp whisper behind me. "Do not bring that cake out. I told you already. I ordered one from Whole Foods." At that very moment, the doorbell rang. Amber flicked her eyes toward the hallway and hissed, "That must be it." A delivery driver stood at the door, holding a pristine white box tied with satin ribbon, Whole Foods Bakery stamped on the side. She signed for it with a flourish, glancing back at me as if she had just won a point in an invisible game. I turned slowly. "But Eli helped me decorate this one last night," I said softly. "He said he wanted the blue stars like last year." Amber looked at me like I had just insulted her entire lineage. "That was before he saw the new one. We're going with the modern one, okay? You can. Keep yours in here." She picked up the cake, my cake, gingerly like it was something contagious, and pushed it aside near the sink. And then she looked at me, scanned my dress, an old floral one I had worn to church for years, and added under her breath, "Honestly, please do not come out with us for pictures. You look old." Through the kitchen doorway, I could see the guests crowding around the marble island, phones raised high, the white ring light casting a cold glow over Amber's perfect hair. A few parents glanced at me, then quickly away, as if my wrinkles might smudge their curated feed. That word was different when it came from family. Eli peeked into the kitchen. "Grandma Rose, is the dinosaur cake ready?" he whispered. Before I could answer, Amber snapped, "No, Eli, we're using Mommy's cake today. Go back outside with Chloe." His little face fell. He didn't say a word, just nodded and disappeared. Then came the moment that finally settled it, the words that sealed something deep inside me, quietly but permanently. Aiden, my eldest grandson, strutted into the kitchen with 2 of his teenage friends. I smiled and reached for the lemonade pitcher. One of his friends asked, "Hey, is that your grandma?" Aiden laughed, loud enough for me to hear. "Nah, she's just our babysitter. Been here forever. My mom just lets her stay out of pity." I remembered hearing Amber on the phone the night before, her voice sharp as broken glass. "She's not family, Aiden. She's just helping out until we can afford real help." His bedroom door had been ajar. He had heard every word. My hand trembled. Lemonade sloshed over the rim. I said nothing, not a word. I just nodded, placed the pitcher down, and walked back into the kitchen corner. If you feel justice deserves celebration, smash that hype button. Let us keep stories like this alive, echoing far, far away. Your support helps us bring understanding and love to those who deserve it. Thank you so much. Keep listening. I stood there for a moment, breathing slowly, not crying. I stopped crying years ago. I could hear the music outside, the camera shutters, the laughter. Amber's voice carried through the open windows. "Let's get one with just us, you know, the real family. And then, make sure none of the clutter shows. I want this shot clean." The clutter. That was me, I suppose. I turned back to the cake near the sink. A small blue star had fallen onto the counter, its frosting smeared from Amber's hand. I picked it up gently and placed it back onto the corner of the cake. Then I looked around. No one was coming to eat it. No one even remembered I had made it. I put on my sweater and walked to the backyard patio, careful not to draw attention. I sat on the bench near the far end, behind the overgrown hedge that Derek never got around to trimming. From there, I could see it all. The balloons, the tables, the laughing kids, the perfect photos being staged. And Eli, sitting at the edge of the bounce house, looking down at his lap, still in the dinosaur shirt I had mended for him last week. He looked up. Our eyes met, just for a second. He smiled, then waved. Small, almost shy, but real. And that one wave, that tiny flick of fingers from a 7-year-old boy who still remembered who sang to him when he was teething, that was the only thing that kept my heart from sinking right through the patio floor. I looked up at the sky. Maybe 7 years of sacrifice was too long a time to be just the help. Maybe it was long enough. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something else. Something final. Because sometimes, when they erase your name from the photos, you stop showing up altogether. And when you stop showing up, you start showing them just how much you've been holding up. Silently, invisibly. Until now. I was 22 when I first learned what it meant to survive alone, and I was 48 when I learned what it meant to keep a promise longer than my own body could stand. Derek was all I had left after his father died in a construction accident. I raised him with the same hands that graded spelling tests, packed school lunches, and worked late nights tutoring other people's children. By the time Derek was 19, I thought maybe life would give him a gentler road than it gave me. Instead, one phone call from a county jail shattered that hope. They said financial misconduct, embezzlement, and possible federal charges. I heard only one word. Son. I mortgaged the little brick house my parents had left me. I cashed out a retirement fund I had been building since I was 23. I sold every ring and necklace his father had given me. In 1 year, I went from a woman with a modest nest egg to a woman with nothing but a signed check and a prayer. I didn't even tell Derek the full amount. I just showed up at the courthouse, sat on the hard wooden bench with my purse in my lap, and nodded when the public defender asked, "Are you sure you want to do this?" "Of course," I said. "He's my son." They released Derek on probation. He hugged me at the exit and cried into my shoulder like he was 10 years old again. I thought maybe this would be the turning point, that from here we'd rebuild, that he'd finally see me not just as a mother, but as the person who had kept his world from collapsing. For a while he was grateful. He said, "Mom, I'll make it right. You'll see." And I believed him. When he met Amber a year later, I told myself it was a good sign. Stability, family, maybe someone who would keep him grounded. She was a pharmacist then, bright and ambitious, and she shook my hand with a smile that almost reached her eyes. "We'll take care of Derek," she said. "You can rest now." I should have known promises made at kitchen tables dissolve faster than sugar in hot tea. Because resting never happened. When Derek and Amber decided to buy a bigger house, they didn't qualify for the loan. He came to me one night after dinner, twisting his wedding ring. "Mom, if you co-sign, it'll change everything for us. We'll pay you back. This is just so we can give the kids a real home." I didn't hesitate, but I didn't sign my name either. Joanne Myers, my college roommate, now a lawyer for elder rights, drew up the papers and stood as the official owner while I sent the checks. It was safer that way. "If you're going to save him," Joanne said quietly, "save him with boundaries. One day, you might need proof." I didn't want proof. I just wanted my son's life to work. For 12 years, I paid every property tax notice, every insurance premium, every furnace repair. I bought the new dishwasher when Amber wanted stainless steel. I paid the gardener when Derek said his back hurt too much to mow the lawn. I sent money quietly, always under the table. It wasn't martyrdom. It was habit. It was motherhood. And still, somehow, I became the unwanted smell in their perfect house. Amber quit her job 2 years after Aiden was born. She told me she was pivoting to wellness content. "You don't understand, Marlene," she said, eyes glittering with ambition. "This is the new economy. I'm going to be huge. I said, you have a good degree, honey. Maybe you can do both for a while, just until it's stable. She snapped back. This is why you've always been small. Small thoughts, small life. I'm not like you. From that day on, I wasn't Grandma Rose anymore. I was the relic in the back room, the person they asked to pick up kids, scrub dishes, stay quiet. Amber began posting photos of our perfect family on social media. I would take the picture, hold the camera steady while she perched in front of the marble countertop I had paid for. When I didn't press the heart button on her posts quickly enough, she'd glare. Not supportive, huh? She'd mutter. One afternoon she asked Chloe, did Grandma call you princess this morning? Chloe shook her head. Amber's mouth tightened. She doesn't even know how to talk to kids, not like us. I bit my tongue until it bled. I had never called Chloe princess because I had called Amber princess once, and Amber had laughed at me, saying, that's so outdated. But now, it was proof of my coldness. That was the thing about living in their house. The rules shifted every day, but the punishment never did. Whatever I did was either too much or not enough. Whatever I didn't do was another mark against me. I lay awake at night sometimes, staring at the ceiling of the tiny guest room that used to be the pantry. My name wasn't on the mailbox, my picture wasn't on the wall. But my money, my time, my body, those were in every nail and brick and birthday present. I thought about the contract Joanne had kept locked in her file cabinet. I thought about the clause she had slipped in at the end, the one I hadn't even asked for. All rights of residency subject to ethical conduct toward benefactor. It's just a precaution, Joanne had said. You never know. I hadn't believed her. Not then. But as I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to Amber's laughter floating down the hall, I wondered how something that started with sacrifice had turned into this quiet exile. They thought I was just the babysitter. They thought my silence meant emptiness. They had no idea what silence can hold. I had always believed in rhythm, not the kind you find in music, but the rhythm that keeps a house running, the silent ballet of chores, warmth, and unnoticed grace. In their home, my rhythm started at 5 in the morning. I would tiptoe across the hallway so the floorboards would not creak and wake the children. I knew which ones squeaked. I had memorized them, the way a sailor memorizes stars. I began every day with the same routine. Boil water, prepare breakfast, eggs, toast, oatmeal if it was cold. Aiden liked his bacon crispy. Chloe wanted almond milk instead of regular, and Eli still struggled with chewing toast crust. I made their lunches while the coffee brewed, with notes slipped inside Eli's bag. Just a tiny heart or a doodle of a sundae. He was the only one who ever mentioned them. After breakfast, I gathered laundry, sorting, folding, washing, drying. Then came school drop-offs. Amber rarely drove. She said school zones gave her anxiety. Derek left early for work, or at least that was the story. Sometimes he just sat in the car, scrolling his phone, pretending to have a schedule. I never asked. That was our rhythm, too. He avoided eye contact. I avoided confrontation. When the house emptied, I cleaned. Dishes, counters, floors, bathrooms. I did not belong in any room, yet every room bore my fingerprints. I straightened the couch cushions. I wiped juice spills and toothpaste blobs and crayon marks from walls that were never mine. I kept inventory of snacks, juice boxes, and toilet paper like a live-in manager no one ever acknowledged. By 3, I was back in the carpool line. Homework checks came after snack time. Aiden always rolled his eyes. Chloe often said, "You're not my teacher." She was right, of course. I had not taught in years. I was just the woman in the background of their lives, making sure things didn't fall apart. At 6, I cooked dinner. Amber filmed herself talking about family routines while I stirred pasta. She always cut me out of the camera frame. "Don't take this the wrong way," she once told me, flipping her hair back like she was on a commercial. But my audience likes a modern aesthetic. Old hands in the kitchen make people think of sad childhoods. I looked down at my hands, wrinkled, calloused, dry. But those same hands had written essays, clapped at recitals, stitched Halloween costumes. They had once held Derek during a night terror. They had buried my husband. Those hands were tired, but they were not ashamed. That night, as we cleared the table, I hesitated. I had been thinking about it for weeks. My late husband, Robert, had painted a few landscapes before he died. They weren't masterpieces, just quiet pieces. A barn in winter, a rowboat on still water, a field of tall grass under gray sky. They had hung in our old house for decades. I had kept them wrapped in a linen sheet at the back of the closet, and now, after 12 years of dust and dishwater, I wanted to see his brushstrokes again. I wanted something, anything, that was mine, on a wall that saw sunlight. So I asked, carefully, gently. "Amber," I said while drying a plate, "would it be all right if I hung a few of Robert's paintings in the living room? Just the small ones. I can place them above the bookshelf." She didn't even turn around. She was standing at the sink, scrolling through her phone. "No," she said flatly. I waited, thinking she had not heard me. She turned then, her lips curled in a soft, mocking smile. "No one wants to see the man you loved staring down at them while they're trying to watch Netflix. This isn't a shrine. It's a home. My home, not a museum." She turned back to her phone. "I just thought—" "You thought wrong," she cut in. "You can hang them in your room if you want, or better yet, keep them where they've been. No need to make the house look dated." I looked at Derek. He was rinsing a glass. He did not lift his head. He did not say a word. His silence was not neutral. It was permission. That moment did not shatter me. It calcified me. I nodded, folded the dish towel, and walked away. I hung one painting, just one, in my tiny room. The field of tall grass. Robert had painted it during our last summer together, when we still believed we'd have more summers to come. I placed it over my desk. That night, I stared at it long after the house went quiet. The colors looked muted, older somehow, like the painting had aged along with me. I remembered something he had once said when he saw me crying quietly in the garden. When people forget where their roots come from, they think they built the whole tree. And that was exactly it. Amber thought she had built everything. She thought the house was hers because the name on the mailbox said Carter. She never asked whose name had paved the way. Even Derek, my son, my only child, had begun to drift so far from me that I wondered if there was any version of him left that still remembered the girl who sewed buttons on his school uniforms. He had chosen comfort over confrontation. He always did. And for 12 years, I let him. But I had started to realize something unsettling. People do not change when you give more. They change when they forget who gave it. That night, Amber posted another photo, this one of the living room, styled to perfection. White curtains, matching pillows. The caption read, "Our beautiful home, built from love and intention. Number blessed, number modern mama." I looked around the room. Nothing in that photo belonged to her. Not the lamp I bought from a garage sale, not the rug I had cleaned by hand, not even the bookshelf. It was Robert's, once. But they had edited me out of everything. I was a ghost in the background of a perfect feed. So I saved the post to my phone, not to share, but to remember. Because ghosts remember, and sometimes ghosts keep receipts. I had been feeling weak for days, but in that house, weakness was a kind of sin. Amber called it playing frail for sympathy. Derek called it being dramatic. I called it living. That morning, the ache behind my eyes turned into something heavier. I was carrying a basket of towels to the laundry room when my knees gave out. The world tilted, the walls blurred, and the next thing I knew, I was on the cold bathroom tiles with the smell of bleach and damp cloth pressing into my nose. The pain shot up my arm where it had hit the sink. My hip throbbed. My head swam with heat. I stayed very still, listening. No one came. The sound of party music drifted from the living room, tinny and distant. Laughter rose and fell. Somewhere, Amber's voice, bright, artificial, calling for someone to bring her ring light. I tried to push myself up. My hand slipped on the tile. The basket had overturned, scattering towels across the floor like fallen flags. I could not catch my breath. I closed my eyes for a moment, thinking of Robert's painting of the field, thinking of how long it had been since anyone asked me if I was okay. When the door creaked open, I thought maybe Derek had come to help, but it was Amber. She stepped in, high heels clicking, phone still in her hand. She looked at me sprawled on the floor, her eyebrows arched not with worry but with annoyance. She didn't bend down, she didn't even put the phone away. "What now?" she said. I slipped. I managed, my voice cracked. "Could you help me up?" She stared for a beat, then smirked. "You know, if you die in here, at least I'll get higher views when I live stream the funeral. Tragic loss of our beloved babysitter. People eat that stuff up." She actually chuckled. "Maybe I should go live right now." I stared at her. The room tilted again, but this time it wasn't the fever. It was disbelief. The kind of disbelief that feels like a cold blade sliding under your ribs. Behind her, Chloe appeared, leaning against the doorframe with her tablet in hand. She grinned. "If she dies, I'm taking her room for my TikTok studio. Perfect lighting." She giggled at her own joke. They both waited for me to say something, like I was the punchline. I pressed my palm to the floor and tried to sit up. The edge of the vanity dug into my back. And then I heard a small voice. "Stop it." Eli. He was standing in the hallway, half hidden behind the doorframe. His dinosaur shirt was too big for him. He looked at me with wide eyes, and then at his mother and sister. "I don't want Grandma to die," he whispered, "but it feels like everyone else does." Amber rolled her eyes. "Oh, relax, Eli. She's fine. She always pulls this stunt." She reached for her phone again. "Go back to your cake." Eli didn't move. He took a step toward me, his little fists clenched at his sides. "Grandma, are you okay?" he asked. His voice trembled. "I'm all right, sweetheart," I said, forcing my lips into something like a smile. My arm was throbbing, my face felt hot. "Grandma just needs a moment." He knelt beside me, ignoring his mother's glare. "I'll help you up." He was too small to lift me, but he held my hand anyway. His little fingers were cool against my fevered skin. "Don't leave me," he whispered so quietly I almost didn't hear it. Amber sighed dramatically. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. "Eli, let's go. She'll get up when she's ready." Chloe had already wandered off, scrolling on her tablet. I managed to push myself upright, leaning against the sink. The mirror above it showed a face I barely recognized. Pale, hair matted to my forehead, eyes dull from exhaustion. I straightened my sweater, though my hand shook as I did it. Amber finally said, "Are you done? Because the guests are waiting." I looked at her reflection in the mirror. Her perfectly curled hair, her gleaming teeth, the contempt etched into her brow. And something inside me, not rage, not even sadness, just settled. Like a stone at the bottom of a river. "Go back to your guests," I said quietly. "I won't disturb you." She blinked, thrown off for a second by the calm in my voice, then shrugged and walked out. Eli squeezed my hand tighter. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't know they were so mean." "It's not your fault," I said softly. "It's never been your fault." I stood slowly, bracing against the counter. My body hurt all over, but my mind felt strangely clear, like a storm had passed and left behind a different kind of air. I wrapped my arm around Eli's shoulders, and we stepped out of the bathroom together. The house roared with laughter and music, but to me, it sounded far away, like echoes in a tunnel. I saw Amber in the living room holding her phone up high, filming a slow pan of balloons and guests, her voice bright and sugary. "Best birthday ever," she chirped into the lens. "Family love all around." I almost laughed. Family love. I led Eli back to the kitchen, where the dinosaur cake still sat under a tea towel. He reached out and touched the corner of it. "You made this, didn't you?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I made it for you." His eyes welled up. "Can I still have a piece?" I cut him a slice and put it on a plate. He ate in silence, glancing at me like he was afraid I might vanish. In that moment, I realized something I had been trying not to admit for years. The people in that house did not see me as family. They saw me as a resource, a relic, an extra pair of hands. But Eli still saw a person, a grandmother, a heart. And that was the moment a different kind of rhythm began inside me. Not the rhythm of chores or of sacrifice. the rhythm of an ending being born quietly, like the first crack of ice before a river breaks free in spring. They thought I would always get back up. They thought my silence meant there was nothing behind it, but I was already standing at the edge of something they could not see. I looked down at Eli and smoothed his hair back from his forehead. "Eat your cake, sweetheart," I said. "There's still time before the candles." He nodded, chewing, crumbs sticking to his lips. I turned toward the window. The sky beyond it was winter bright and cloudless, a sharp, endless blue. It looked like a painting Robert might have done, all cool light and open air. I took a slow breath. My hip ached, my arm throbbed, my chest burned with fever. But my spine felt straight for the first time in years. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the pain and the fatigue, a thought bloomed like a seed finally waking. Enough. The fever broke late that night. I woke drenched in sweat, tangled in sheets that smelled like menthol and vinegar. My arm still ached, and my hip flared every time I shifted. But my mind had never been clearer. The silence in the house was dense. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the occasional creak of the air vents, the gentle whistle of wind through the drafty back door. I sat up slowly, reached for my phone, and scrolled to the folder labeled "Just in Case." It held two things: the audio recording of Amber's words from that afternoon and the legal contact card saved under JM, short for Joanne Myers. I had not spoken to Joanne in nearly 2 years, though we sent each other birthday cards without fail. We met in college, shared a dorm room, and spent countless nights debating ethics, love, and whether or not women like us could ever afford to rest. She became a lawyer, I became a teacher. Life pushed us in opposite directions, but some friendships have deeper roots than years can cut. I pressed call. She picked up on the second ring. "Marlene," she said, her voice laced with surprise and instant concern. "What's wrong?" "I need to activate it," I said. "Just that." There was a beat of silence. Then her tone shifted, professional and calm. "Do you have the material?" "I do. Audio. Time-stamped. Witnessed." She asked no further questions. Joanne knew what I meant. 12 years ago, when I agreed to buy the house and put it under her name, she had insisted on a clause that I thought, at the time, was excessive. We called it, half-jokingly, the decency clause, a hidden line buried in the fine print of a residential agreement that no one in that house ever read. All rights of residency and use are conditional upon maintaining respectful and non-harmful conduct toward the benefactor. Any behavior deemed abusive, degrading, or emotionally harmful, documented or witnessed, will trigger immediate forfeiture of residency rights. Upon such violation, all physical property shall revert to the designated trust. Amber, of course. I never read it. She thought the house was a gift, a free inheritance, wrapped in silence and unpaid labor. Joanne's voice returned, steady. "I'll initiate the transfer first thing in the morning. It'll be airtight." "Thank you," I whispered. "Truly." "Mar," she said, softer now, "you held on longer than most would. I think that's what hurts the most." We hung up. I sat in the dark, the weight of the past 12 years pressing on my shoulders like soaked wool. But under that weight, something else had begun to take root. Relief. Not vindictive, not angry, just clean. By dawn, I had already begun to pack. Not much. A few dresses, my knitting basket, the folder of drawings Eli had made me over the years, Robert's painting of the tall grass. I wrapped it in a towel and placed it gently in the bottom of the suitcase. I moved quietly. The others were still asleep. I didn't want to see them. I didn't want more words. Words had failed in this house long ago. What I needed now was motion, exit, and clarity. I left a single envelope on the kitchen table. No bow, no signature, just a folded letter, plain and white. In it I wrote, ****, to whom it may concern. I was never just the babysitter. I was the one who paid the heating bill when no one noticed the draft. I was the one who held your child's hand through croup and fever, who mended pajamas and sewed name tags on backpacks. I was the one who let you pretend that success came without a foundation. I was the one who stayed silent while you built yourselves on my back. This home was not yours. It was lent. And now, it is reclaimed. Per the ethical clause embedded in the property agreement, you have violated the terms. This is not an opinion, it is a legal fact. Your behavior was documented, reviewed, and found to be in breach. Effective immediately, your right to reside here is terminated. You have 30 days to vacate. The property will be transferred to the Living Roots Trust, with future co-ownership to be granted upon majority to Elijah Carter. I was the babysitter, yes. But I am not here to babysit your conscience. I cannot keep what has already rotted. Sincerely, Marlene R. Carter. ****. I placed the envelope beneath a small porcelain trinket box shaped like a bird. It had belonged to Amber's grandmother. Irony, maybe, or symmetry. I didn't care. I stepped out with my bag just as the sun began to rise. The street was silent, golden with morning light. I walked to the end of the block where Joanne's car was already waiting. She didn't say anything at first, just opened the passenger door and waited. As we pulled away, I looked back at the house. It looked so still, so unaware. Joanne finally asked, "Do you feel any guilt?" I thought about it. "No," I said. "I feel like I finally left a room I wasn't invited to." We drove in silence after that, letting the sound of tires on pavement replace all the years of swallowing every insult. They would find the letter. They would scream, maybe cry, maybe rage, but there would be nothing to undo what was done. And for the first time in years, I would sleep without dreaming of being erased, because I had already written my name into the very walls they stood on. And now, I had taken them back. Joanne had always been a woman of precision, sharp suits, sharper words. That morning, when she knocked on the front door of the Carter residence, she didn't bring emotion, she brought facts. And paperwork. Thick envelopes sealed and notarized, each one a quiet blade wrapped in legal parchment. Amber opened the door, still in her silk robe, holding a half-empty smoothie cup with Kale Goddess scrawled across it. Her expression shifted from confusion to annoyance the moment she saw Joanne. "You're the friend, right? From college or something?" she asked, voice dripping with disinterest. "I'm the trustee of the property you're currently occupying," Joanne replied with a calm smile. "And I'm here to deliver official notification of revoked residency." Amber blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" Joanne didn't flinch. She handed over the envelope. "You have 30 calendar days to vacate this residence. As per the contract signed and agreed to 12 years ago, your actions, documented and verified, have activated the Moral Conduct Clause. Per Section 4C, this property now legally reverts to the Living Roots Trust, established by Marlene Carter." Amber snorted. "That old bat doesn't get to throw us out of our own home." "Derek!" she screamed over her shoulder. "She's trying to evict us." Joanne continued, unbothered. "The house was never yours. It was never in your name. And now it belongs, officially, to a charitable entity called Home for the Forgotten, co-owned, upon reaching majority, by Elijah Carter." At that moment, Derek appeared behind Amber, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He saw Joanne, saw the envelope in Amber's hand, and paled. Wait, this is a joke, right?" Joanne raised a brow. "Does it look like I joke, Derek?" He stared at the papers. "No, but I thought, Mom wouldn't. She wouldn't, actually." "She would," Joanne said simply. "She did." Amber tore open the envelope, eyes scanning the legalese like someone searching for a lifeline in a sea of sharks. "You're saying this house is now owned by a non-profit, and some kid? My kid?" "Your 7-year-old son," Joanne said smoothly, "has been named the legal co-beneficiary of the estate, with full ownership rights activated upon his 18th birthday, pending conduct in accordance with the ethics clause." Amber gaped. "A child gets the house, while we get thrown out like trash?" Joanne shrugged. "Well, as you said many times, she was just the babysitter, so now the babysitter has left, and the child is the one keeping the lights on." Amber's voice cracked. "She's crazy. She's mentally ill. Who does this? Who gives a house to a kid?" Joanne tilted her head. A woman who was ignored, insulted, overworked, and erased for 12 straight years. Derek tried to intervene, putting a hand on Amber's shoulder. "We can fight this, right? There's gotta be some loophole." "No," Joanne said flatly. "There are recordings, witnesses, written documentation. Your mother was smarter than you ever gave her credit for." Amber dropped the papers and turned away, pacing in circles. No, no. This is insane. A freaking 7-year-old with a house? What about me? I'm his mother. I've given up everything. Joanne didn't even blink. You gave up your job, your decency, and your chance to read the fine print. You see, Marlene anticipated being treated like a burden. She just didn't expect you to confirm it so publicly. Amber rounded on her, voice shrill. "So what? We're homeless now? Over feelings?" Joanne's voice cooled to a near whisper. "Over conduct. Yours, your husband's, and your children's. You made the home uninhabitable for its benefactor. Now you can see what that really means." From the top of the stairs, Eli peeked down. He had heard most of it. Chloe was sulking in her room. Aiden was still pretending to sleep. Eli descended slowly and looked up at Joanne. "Is Grandma coming back?" Joanne's expression softened. "No, sweetheart, but she made sure you'd have a place to remember her by." Amber spun. "He doesn't even know how to own a house. He doesn't even wash behind his ears. This is a setup." Joanne turned to Eli. "Do you know what your grandma told me about you?" Eli blinked. "What?" "She said you were the only one who remembered her name when everyone else forgot it. That's why she left it to you." Amber shook her head in disbelief, hands in her hair. "Oh my God, I'm getting evicted by a second grader." "Not today," Joanne clarified. "You have 30 days, but I would advise you to start packing." Derek sat down at the kitchen table, stunned. His voice was hoarse. "She really meant it." "She meant it years ago," Joanne said gently. "She just never had the heart to follow through until you gave her no other choice." Amber slumped onto the couch, defeated. "I hate that woman." Eli stepped toward Joanne and whispered, "Can I write her a letter?" Joanne smiled. She'd like that very much. And then, without another word, Joanne turned and walked out the door. The echo of the latch clicking behind her sounded louder than any shouting ever had. In the silence that followed, Amber stared out the window, Derek stared at the floor, and Eli looked down at the envelope in his small hands. On it, his name was written in Marlene's neat, looping script, "For Elijah, the one who still saw me." And that, more than anything, made it clear this house had never belonged to them. It had always been waiting for someone who remembered where it came from. The letter arrived 2 weeks after the house was legally transferred. It came in a plain white envelope, smudged with what looked like a bit of peanut butter on the edge. The handwriting on the front was large and wobbly, the letters uneven but full of care. "To Grandma Marlene, please read." I had moved into a small cottage on the edge of town, nothing fancy. Just 2 rooms, a screened-in porch, and enough quiet to hear the crickets at night. It was part of the Home for the Forgotten property I had helped fund quietly years ago. Joanne made sure I was comfortable, insisted I take the master suite, and even stocked the fridge with buttermilk and blueberries. "For pancakes," she said with a wink, "in case you ever feel like making them just for yourself." That morning, I was sitting on the porch in my robe with a warm cup of tea when the mail carrier waved and handed me the envelope. I hadn't expected any letters, not really. Certainly not from that house. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. The paper inside was blue, lined, with little stars printed on the corners. Written in a child's blocky script was this: "Dear Grandma, I hope you are okay. Mom and Dad are really mad. They said a lot of words I can't write here because you told me not to say bad words. But I know what they mean. Chloe says you ruined everything, but I think everything was already not nice. I miss your pancakes, the ones shaped like hearts. No one knows how to do them right. I miss your songs. When I had that fever and cried because my head hurt, you sang 'You Are My Sunshine' and rubbed my back. Mom says I'm too big for songs now, but I don't think you're ever too big to be loved. I'm sorry I didn't stop them. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to say, 'Don't be mean to Grandma.' I should have said it more. I should have said it louder. Thank you for giving me the house. I don't understand it all yet, but Mr. Lawyer said it means I'll always have somewhere to go. I hope you'll come back one day and live in it with me. We can plant tomatoes in the backyard. I want to learn. I want to do it right this time. Love, Eli. P.S. I'm keeping your dinosaur cake picture. It's in my sock drawer, so no one can throw it away. I sat frozen for a long time, the paper clutched in both hands, the sunlight warming my knees. My eyes blurred, not from sadness, but from something softer, something whole. I pressed the letter to my chest, right where my heart had started to feel hollow. For 12 years I had been erased, painted out of pictures, used like scaffolding for a structure I was never meant to live in. But this was a child handing me back my name. I whispered to the empty room. He remembered. Robert would have smiled. He always believed that the truth had a way of leaking through, even when sealed behind selfishness and spite. The honest ones, he used to say, they keep their light even in closed drawers. I folded the letter neatly and placed it inside the old cigar box I kept on my writing desk, the one filled with cards, notes, and the drawings Eli used to slip under my pillow. Then, I poured myself another cup of tea. I had not taken revenge. Not really. I had drawn a line. A quiet one. Firm. I hadn't screamed or thrown things. I had simply removed myself from the table they fed at and reminded them that the table had been mine to begin with. And I had given the house to the only one who still saw me. Not as just the babysitter, but as his sunshine, his safety, his home. I smiled then, tears still drying on my cheeks. The boy kept his word, I whispered, and I kept him out of that family machine before it chewed him up like the rest. That night, I baked a fresh batch of heart-shaped pancakes. Not for anyone else. Just for me. And I sang, "You are my sunshine" to the stars, slow and soft, under a quilt I stitched by hand. Because sometimes, reclaiming your name isn't about making them say it. It's about living in a world where one child still whispers it like a prayer. The headlines came in waves, first local, then national, then viral. Nevada grandma uses hidden ethics clause to reclaim house from influencer daughter-in-law. Just the babysitter. Think again. Moral eviction. Elderly woman quietly destroys fake perfect family empire with one letter. But the one that stuck, the one now framed on my wall, was the cover of Nevada Living. First time they ever featured a woman with gray hair. The babysitter who took the house back. The photo they used wasn't glamorous. I wasn't in makeup or posed with perfect posture. I was sitting on my porch with a cup of tea, looking out at the lake. They caught the exact moment I smiled, half sad, half satisfied. The kind of smile you earn, not perform. Meanwhile, Amber went viral for reasons I imagine she didn't plan. Someone clipped her live stream, her sobbing in full makeup, fake lashes trembling, face red and swollen as she pleaded with followers. "This is illegal, right? You can't just lose your house because of some babysitter clause. She's not even family. She's just..." The clip cut to black, and the internet did what it does best, responded. Thousands of comments flooded in, each one harsher than the last. "She raised your kids and paid your bills. You threw her out of a picture. She wrote her name into the deed. When she held your babies, they slept. When you couldn't hold your tongue, you lost everything. She was the house. You were just renting decency." But the one comment I kept, the one I wrote down and folded into Eli's last letter, simply read, "When she held your child, your world was steady. When you couldn't hold her heart, it all collapsed." Eli called once a week now. Chloe no longer spoke to me. Aiden tried to write an apology, but Joanne told me he copied half of it from ChatGPT, so I let it go. Derek. Well, Derek sent a check I never cashed. He didn't include a note. But Eli? He asked questions. He remembered my stories. He sent a drawing of a house with a heart on the roof. He told me he was going to grow tomatoes, just like I used to. He didn't say much else. He didn't need to. Sometimes, justice doesn't arrive with gavel cracks or grand speeches. Sometimes, It arrives in the quiet reclamation of space, in the memory of a child. In the silence, after you finally stop apologizing for needing peace. I now spend my mornings overlooking Lake Mead from a tiny wooden deck that creaks in the wind. The breeze here tastes clean, like old promises kept. My house smells like lavender and lemon. No screeching, no door slamming, no accusations wrapped in sugar. Just peace. I wake up when the sun nudges the curtain. I walk barefoot. I hang Robert's paintings on the walls, not because anyone will see them, but because I want them to be seen. For once, I choose what hangs and what doesn't. Some Sundays, I still make the pancakes, just for me. And every night, before I go to bed, I pour 1 cup of tea and sit by the window. I look out at the water, where it glimmers under the moon like it's holding secrets just for me. And I whisper, not loudly, not angrily, just with the weight of a life finally spoken aloud. They called me the babysitter. I was. I held their babies, held their meals, held their chaos. But now, I hold my own name, my own peace, my own place. And that is more than enough. If you felt that, deep in your bones, if you believe silence can carry power, and that dignity has no expiration date, then this story was for you. Some call it revenge. I call it remembering who you are. And if you want more true stories like this, stories of women who were counted out, pushed aside, and rose anyway, subscribe to Grandma True Stories. Every week, we tell the truths the world tried to bury. Because wisdom doesn't shout, it waits. And when a grandma finally speaks, the world listens. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to remember. You're not too old, too quiet, or too kind to reclaim your name.